we are live now. So a very good evening. A very good evening to one and all present on this virtual platform. I, Dr. Anita Yadav, along with my colleague, Dr. Suman Yadav, ma'am, and from entire fraternity of Campus Law Center, University of Delhi, welcome you all in this one-day webinar on exploring the aspect of artificial intelligence in legal domain. So dear friends, it's indeed a great pleasure to welcome today's eminent guest speakers of this webinar, Dr. Anand Raut sir, Ms. Tika Pillinger ma'am, for taking out their valuable time out of their busy schedule. We are really grateful to you, sir and ma'am. And with this, I would like to invite our beloved Professor in charge, Campus Law Center, University of Delhi, Professor Dr. Alka Chawla ma'am, to give a welcome address. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Anita. The one thing that I loved was she said beloved, because normally when you talk about your heads, it is something else. But I would cherish this for life if you really feel like this. A very, very good evening to all of you, to all my erudite faculty, to all dear students, and especially Dr. Anand and Rawat, Ms. Tika Pillinger. So today we are all here on the subject of artificial intelligence. And I think it is no overstatement to assert that artificial intelligence is evoking an unprecedented interest. No other area in the recent times has been able to elicit legions of debates and discussions as we have seen in this area, churning out disparate opinions, deliberations on routine basis, even on dining table when you sit, social gatherings when you are, people are talking about it. And as we can see that it is not only dealing with the present, it is also dealing with the future milieu, which is exponentially shaped by the development and growth in the domain of artificial intelligence. The presence today is unimaginable sphere of human activities, and they're all becoming a reality today. This new paradigm, this new reality has been both good and beneficial to human society, and at the same time, it has engendered pretty bad consequences as well. Artificial intelligence has for quite some time been able to perform multitudinous activities which were hitherto could be produced only applying the creativity of the human mind. Drawings and paintings were used to be exclusively a prerogative of human mind, but no longer. Writing novels and stories used to be the product of creative genius of human minds. Again, no longer. Artificial intelligence has already intruded in these aforesaid areas, and they're doing fine creative jobs. So we don't only have technology, we have creative jobs also working. It is sometimes so strange. The other day I was just talking to my husband and I said, coffee, would you like to have coffee? And there, suddenly a cup of coffee emerged right in front of me in Google, and there was a procedure for how to make good coffee. So this is something which is amazing. It is awesome, and at the same time, very, very scary too. So we need to deal with it actually with, I wouldn't say intelligently, both intelligently and with kids' gloves too. And this artificial intelligence, it has enabled machines and cars and all other imaginable day-to-day technologies and appliances. And it has made our life so convenient and hassleless. All our, some of the activities at home, office working, laptops, leisurely times, traveling, engrossed in entertainment everywhere, whether it is shopping, business, transportation. You speak of a sphere, and artificial intelligence is making an encroachment there. It has undoubtedly produced various unintended consequences. And some of the issues are way too serious and grim to be ignored. In the domain of IPR, AI has posed conundrum on various fronts. Dilemmas with regard to creativity, quotient of IP, AI, who is the author, who is the owner. These are some of the very serious issues which are coming up. Liability issues. If there is a car being driven because of artificial intelligence, who is going to be holding the liability if there is an accident which takes place? Is it the owner of the car, or is it the person who has made that AI? These are difficult questions to be answered. And I don't think I can actually speak much about it. We have got young brains today who are going to deal with this particular topic. And this webinar, which has been very well thought about, both Suman and Anita, two brightest of faculty that we have. And I'm not just adding an adjective to it. I actually mean it. They are my pillars. Without them, I can't really run the center. And they thought of a topic which is exploring the aspects of artificial intelligence in the legal domain. Thank you so much, both of you, for bringing such a contemporary topic to the students and to the faculty and to me personally. So I hope that the speakers today, they're going to talk about this, raise new issues, give certain insights, give certain specific directions to us, which would both be helpful to the students, to the faculty, and to all the members who are participating in this webinar. All my blessings. God bless you. And let's hear the two bright brains that we have today with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your blessings. And thank you so much for such an enlightening welcome address and, setting a background that how AI is entering in everyday life and what kind of challenges we are going to face in the incoming future. So with this, may I call upon my colleague, Dr. Suman Yadav, ma'am, to introduce our today's guest speaker to this webinar, Dr. Anand and Rawat, sir, and Ms. Pritika Pillinger, ma'am. Suman, ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Anita. It's my great honor to introduce our first guest speaker, Dr. Anand N. Rawat, sir. Sir is an assistant professor and founding member of Maharashtra National Law University and presently serving as head of postdoctorate department at Maharashtra National Law University, Mumbai. He is deputy director of the Center for Information Communication and Technology Law and is also a member of Academic Council at National Law University, Mumbai. Dr. Rawat holds his doctorate degree in technology and data protection laws. Having done an advanced diploma program in cyber laws, he has cleared UGC NET and is a merit holder in both graduation and post-graduation. That has undertaken various research projects, authored, edited, and reviewed research papers, articles, chapters for national and international publishing. He has authored reading material for national law universities, GNU, B.Y. Patil Open University, etc. Sir has been invited as a speaker at national and international platforms. We welcome you, sir. Now I take the privilege to introduce our second guest speaker, Ms. Tika Pillinger. Ma'am is an independent tech lawyer and an artificial intelligence enthusiast. She is also a fellow at For Humanity, US-based non-profit organization, working an independent audit of AI system. Ma'am is also a member of Spring Cohort, Center for AI and Digital Policy, USA. Prior to working as an independent consultant, she has worked as an in-house counsel with Hindustan Aeronautics Limited for a period of 8 years. She has advised on a range of legal matters, including complex high-value contracts, intellectual property, and employment matters. She holds a BA LLB from Mangalore University and LLM in Business Laws from National Law School of India University, Bengaluru. Welcome you, ma'am. Over to you, Dr. Anita. You are muted, Dr. Anita.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Suman, ma'am. Now I would like to call upon our first guest speaker, Dr. Anand N. Rawat, sir, to deliver his talk on gender bias and artificial intelligence. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Suman Yadav, for that generous introduction. First and foremost, I want to thank Patron-in-Chief of today's program, Professor Dr. 𝐂𝐿𝐶𝐤, Professor in Charge, Campus Law Center, and webinar directors, Dr. Suman Yadav, Assistant Professor, Campus Law Center, and Dr. Anita Yadav, Assistant Professor of Campus Law Center. I also want to mention that I feel privileged and honored to share the platform besides Ms. Pritika Pillinger, who is a lawyer and for Humanity Fellow in AI and Privacy, and also would be discussing certain aspects on AI. Now, generally when we talk about AI, yes, it's fascinating and all, but sometimes it sounds jargonic also. So what I'll try to do is, I'll try to simplify things, and if possible, I'll try to sensitize also to some extent. Basically, what is an AI? We hear a lot about it on television, on internet, everywhere. But simply put, AI is the ability of a computer to perform things which are commonly associated with intelligent beings. So if we are calling ourselves intelligent beings, some of our characteristics, some of our intellectual processes are offered by computers with the help of AI technology. It can be ability to reason, it can be discover meaning, it can be to generalize, it can be from learning from the past experience, it can be many things. But at present, if you see all over the research that is being carried out, they are more focused, the people who are writing program for AI, they are more focused on learning, reasoning, problem solving, perception, and using language. Okay, I hope already I have not started sounding a bit jargonic. So I'll simplify it more. Where do we see these things happening around us? We see these things happening around us in voice assistants that we have at our houses, entertainment streaming apps, personalized marketing, self-driving car, which even Professor Dr. 𝐿𝐶𝐏 in her introductory speech made us aware of, facial recognition technologies, automated spell checks, social media feeds, navigation apps like Google, and smart devices. So we can say that we are surrounded by AI, right? Now, all these equipments and programs from time to time, continuously, frequently, are making judgments, they are making decisions for us, and they are serving us, right? Now, the question is, why at times these judgments are not fair? And my question comes from the bias point of view. Why do we see these biases? Why are they at times biased in making decisions or drawing inferences, even though they appear to be neutral, or they ought to appear to be neutral? Now, some of you would say, sir, it's very simple. Humans have made it. Humans are inherently biased. So naturally, they would also be biased. Okay, they mirror us. It is right, yes, AI is collecting, if it's collecting data from the history books, and if our history is biased towards, let's say, a particular gender, naturally they'll also learn to be biased towards a particular gender. So what is to be done? Some of you would again say, sir, the answer is quite simple. Punish the person, and to some extent even ma'am reflected in her speech, punish the person, affix the liability upon whosoever has written that program. If your program has shown bias, you affix some liability, you punish that person. The answer would be yes, but it's not that simple when it comes to AI. And why is that so? The reason is, and why it is more worrying, is that the fact that AI programs can be applied easily on a much larger scale. So if I am the creator of a program which is used by a voice assistant, let's say Siri or anything, that product has reached billions of houses. That means if I have bias towards a particular gender, it would creep into those billions of houses. And that is what is worrying. Second thing, and this is not the only one thing. Second thing, it is very difficult to predict how and why AI behaved in a particular manner, or it would behave at a future point of time in a particular manner. Forget about the third person, even the maker finds it difficult to predict it. And then at the top of it, we'll add something new to it. Generally, AI is thought of about softwares, programs, but that is not the case. If you couple it with some brilliant hardware, let's say quantum computer, and then you imagine the evils or the evil effects that can cause, then that situation can be worrying. Now, why is that so? Simply because the capacity which a quantum computer can bring with itself. It has been recorded that the computing power of quantum computer is so good that a calculation which a quantum computer can make in fraction of seconds would otherwise can take a classic computer 10,000 years to perform. Okay, and now you imagine the magnanimity at which we are discussing this disruptive technology, if it happens to be a disruptive. AI, especially in machine learning, the systems learns from and adapts to its environment. So they are continuously in the learning process. Okay, which itself keeps changing from time to time, right? The environment also keeps changing. So it almost becomes impossible for the developer to predict or control how the system would develop and how it will modify itself, because it will all depend upon the environment it has been interacting with, it has been learning from, which has been changing from time to time. So now you see how difficult it has become. Now again, some of you might say, sir, you're playing on our fear psychosis. Don't do that. We don't think that the threat is that real. Okay, fine. You have told this is theoretical and all that stuff. But are there any instances? Has it really happened? Has really AI been biased, or has it happened only in movies? So the answer you only have to find. I'll just narrate few incidences. The Amazon company, which runs an online portal, e-commerce portal, they had a tool who was given a task to vet and suggest best resumes for hiring people. Now, this tool relied on hiring data of last 10 years with Amazon. And the tool must have observed that tech jobs were dominated by males in the company. So what happened? It started treating those applications unfavorably, where it found terms like woman chess club captain, etc. And they had to take it back. They faced a huge backlash and they had to take it back. At one reported incident, despite having a better credit score of a wife compared to her husband, the credit card company limited her credit capacity by half in comparison to her husband. Why that happened so? Ideally, that should not have happened. AI should have acted neutrally, but unfortunately, that didn't happen. It has also been observed that AI systems supporting skin cancer detection, because AI is into medicine also now, AI is into everything, have struggled to detect melanoma for Black people. There was a famous project called as Gender Shade project. In that project, the systems misclassified women far more than men. In particular, dark-skinned women were misclassified at an error rate of 35% compared to an error rate of 0.8% for a lighter-skinned man. And we have also seen some kind of incidences happening in our own country with respect to our face recognition technology. They were not able to recognize the faces, and that all created chaos and a lot of hue and cry in the society. Now, how things can become more serious, and why should we become more concerned about it? One thing that you all might have observed is the voice assistants that we have at our offices or homes. The voice assistants, the voice of those voice assistants is, can I get some response? The voice of voice assistants is, if it's possible, I don't know whether it's allowed to interact, but can someone tell me which voice is of voice assistants like Alexa and all?
By default, it is set to female voice, but we can change it to male voice.
Excellent, excellent. Why that could be?
Can I answer
because that
question?
biasness and gender specific biasness that is there.
You are directly jumping to the conclusion thinking that because the session is titled. No, why in the first place could have been the case. We are not saying is the case, but could have been the case. Why it is female voiced?
Because that sounds sweet, maybe.
It may be tempting, sir.
Can I answer the question?
Sir, may I answer?
See, generally, what are these voice assistants doing? They're serving us.
The main purpose is assisting. And so your like we see like your personal assistants majorly are dominated by the females. So it is like
because
connect in
like
virtual
people
world.
Yes, yeah. Someone was saying something. Yes.
Sir, in the evolution process, the women were at the home and they developed their language skill very properly and very brilliantly in the evolution of the human. So in that way, it is.
Okay. Yeah, I'll come. I'll let you finish, please. Yeah.
So in that way, they are more preferred or given the priority in listening the women voice over the men.
See, if it has come out, yeah, someone was trying to say something.
So generally it is believed, this is my opinion, that generally it is believed that women have a more, better voice, like as in tone, and maybe that is the reason, and to appeal to the audience for the customer satisfaction.
If it is better tone and voice and prompt, if that is the mindset from where it is coming, it's great. It is great. But then,
may I?
Yeah, please.
So I believe that in our society, we are like very patriarchal and we honestly like ordering women around. And that's what we do with the assistants. We keep asking them questions and we want them to respond to us.
Want to be submissive and compliant.
Yeah, basically, yeah. That's what we have expected a woman to do. And that's why we probably make the assistants women.
See, if with this mindset set, if it has happened, okay, and this is what historically, unfortunately, stereotypically, women have been looked at as submissive and compliant. So let's have female voice in the voice assistant so that people are also used to it. People like our services. If with that mentality that has happened, then it's very, very serious. Okay, because what we are doing here is we already have harmed the society. But what we are doing is that we are encouraging that stereotype, right? We are reinforcing and amplifying the existing harmful gender stereotypes and prejudices. That is what should not happen, right? You must have seen videos, you must have seen reports where people are in the habit of abusing voice assistants which have female voice. They cuss, they abuse, and they use very derogatory language with their voice assistant, thinking that, okay, associating those bots, those are bots, those are not live, so those are bots, associating those bots with specific genders, and then they alter the conversation, and that mentality gets reflected. So now if people are in the habit of abusing the voice assistant, which has a female voice, and these are those people who associate, and we do get associated. There are so many so much has been written about it, so much literature is available, that we tend to associate bots with genders. If that is the case, then the positive or negative responses to such abuses, okay, can reinforce the idea that harassing comments to a particular gender are appropriate. Let us say a person is associating a bot with female because it is female voice and abuses it, and the assistant also responses to it very positively and takes it up. Okay, what is happening? Indirectly, involuntarily, in a very subtle manner, we are reinforcing the idea that these harassing comments are fine, these are okay with 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 a particular gender. So that is worrying, and that should not happen. Can we do something about it? We have seen in the introductory and the welcome speech also what kind of AI is capable of doing. What these days to AI is capable of making apps autonomously. It can make apps, so you don't have to write codes. The AI will write the code for you. So it's like a magic wand, but these things are worrying. So gender biases generally occur during machine learning. So we have to fix the thing there. Okay. Labeling of data, wherever it's taking place, gender fluidity has to be ensured there. Teams who are working on AI ought to be made gender sensitive, and the team itself should have some gender diversity, gender equity. Okay, only 22% of professionals working in AI and data science are women, and that's why in the beginning I said that I am very happy and fortunate to see Miss Tika Pillinger ma'am on the platform, because that is what we need. We need not just gender, we need to have people from diverse demographic strata working on AI. Otherwise the AI will start having biases against people from different demographics. That's also not good. Any activity, any suspicious activity, even if singled out, if it's found and if it's recorded, immediately it has to be acted upon, because AI ought to be neutral. They should be serving us, but they ought to be neutral. We come from a legal background, so we'll always say, sir, let's make stringent laws. Okay, this all, even if we don't do, still we'll be able to take care of it. How pornography related laws, hacking related laws, online defamation related laws, spam related laws, phishing related laws have been successful, we know. Even till date we get messages, our phones get hacked, our machines are corrupt, our network gets corrupt because of, or get hacked, or the nuisance of this thing, despite having laws. Making of laws, making stringent laws can help us to a certain extent. Beyond that, not. Okay, so making a good law can be a good solution, but personally I believe that when it comes to technology, when it comes to disruptive technology like this, it is only with the technology, industry standards, norms of people, we people can avoid the evil effects of this technology with respect to gender bias. And in furtherance of that, we can generate some industry standards, we can develop them. And the sole purpose of those industry standards would be to humanize AI, because gender bias is just one of the biases. We have to humanize the AI, which would serve as the civil society, which would stand up to the expectations of the civil society. We have to take a step ahead in that. UNESCO has already been doing it. UNESCO recently released a report on artificial intelligence and gender equality, and it has stressed on advancing gender equality through education, science, culture, information, and communication. its 2019 report. I would blush if I could. Closing gender divides in digital skills speaks for closing of gender divides in digital skills through education. Unambiguously shows that gender biases have been found in AI data sets, training data sets. So we have to work over there. And algorithms and devices have the potential of spreading and reinforcing harmful gender stereotypes. These gender biases risk further stigmatizing and marginalizing women on global scale, and hence need to be taken seriously, has to be tackled seriously. This was reported back in 2019. We, after pandemic, have been become reliant on AI. But basically, if we have to address, it has to be addressed from all corners, and given the paucity of time, very short span of time as was possible for me, hope I have pumped some interest in your minds, so that from here onwards, because it's such a short span of time, we cannot discuss all under it, considering it's AI. Hope it has generated some interest in you. You have become some enthusiast about it. Try to find more instances where AI has been the cause of gender bias. And then at the back of your mind, imagine the suggestions that I have given, whether they would be able to solve it or not. If yes, great. If not, come out, write,
So
and publish.
there's a question. Hello. So
yes.
Sir, what about cybersecurity vulnerabilities in India? Because we already topped in the top 10 cyber vulnerability list in India, especially in last year or this year.
Yes.
And yeah. So there are several cyber crimes in India, very काफी normal hai. As compared to cyber is using as a personal term, like Pegasus. We can take example of Pegasus. And it's totally used as a personal tool.
Shankar, I guess, right?
May say Mohit.
Mohit, okay, Mohit. See, this topic is a little different from the topic of the session, today's session, but I will still cursorily will address it. Security can be plugged, vulnerability can be plugged only with security. Okay, and do not think so the answer, the solution to your cyber security would come from cyber security itself. Cyber security has got its pros and cons. Okay, it's costly, it is not compatible between different devices, it's sometimes slows down your device, etc. But vulnerabilities, if you feel in your device, it has to be plugged from cyber security itself, because simply the sheer manner in which cyber attacks happen, and considering the fact that it can be done from any part of the world, you have to keep your device safe. Your laws, their jurisdiction, yes, it's a long arm statute, etc., would be able to help, but how many people are there? Look at the number of people who are working cyber cells and police machinery, and the technology is enabling you. Now there are AI which can continuously on its own will learn from will attack other computers or devices, and will keep learning that okay, this has failed, I'll come up with some new attack. Now how are you going to stop that, right? And at the same time, at the same juncture, you can attack millions of devices. It's simply not possible to expect from the police machinery or enforcement agencies to nab it down. So the best thing that you can do is you can keep your device safe, have that cyber security, and of course there's something called as cyber hygiene also, that also you have to keep. So with that only you would be able to keep yourself safe. That would be the answer in a very shortest format.
Thank you, Anand sir. Can I request the student to keep your question reserved and they can type in their question in the chat box. We have a Q&A session towards the end of this program, and I will, pick your questions. So thank you, Anand sir, for giving a very thought-provoking session and for highlighting through a lot of example that how AI is creating a biasness in various fields. I completely agree with your point, sir, that it is a time to humanize the AI. It has been a very excellent lecture. So with this, may I invite Ms. Pritika Pillinger ma'am to deliver her lecture on topic regulating the AI challenges and way ahead. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Anita. Very good evening to all of you. First of all, I would like to thank Professor Dr. 𝐿𝐶𝐏𝐵 ma'am for being the leader behind this initiative. I think it's a very brilliant initiative, and I thank Dr. Anita as well as Dr. Suman for putting all of this together. And I feel very privileged to be a co-speaker with Dr. Anand Rawat, who has very brilliantly put together how bias is affecting AI, because it is one of the core concerns with respect to AI as of date. So thank you all of you. And I feel very specifically privileged to be speaking and addressing the students of DU, because I've met several alumni of Delhi University, and what I see as a common factor in all of them is that they are very passionate about legal rights, about the rights of citizens, and they're very empathetic towards the underprivileged. And in these AI circles, we keep having this discussion about how AI is able to do a lot of things, but there are very few things that AI is not able to emulate as of now. And one of them is empathy, right? So kudos to the whole spirit of DU, and keep up this good spirit in which all of you are working. So without much ado, I'll directly jump into my topic. So I'm going to spend next few minutes talking about regulating AI, the challenges and the way ahead. So this is how the broad structure of my presentation is going to be. And I understand we do not have a lot of time. I'll try to be concise. Please feel free, Dr. Anita and Dr. Suman, if you want to stop me at any point of time. So introduction, what is AI and what is not AI? And since Dr. Rawat has explained it quite beautifully, I wouldn't spend a lot of time on it. What are the challenges in regulating AI? And what are the different approaches to AI regulation? So you might be somebody who is, who doesn't want to be a technology lawyer, right? You want to be a hardcore constitutional lawyer or a property lawyer or a criminal lawyer, right? So, but we are talking about a legal profession, and lawyers don't retire. So we are talking about a legal profession for, say, 40 years from now, right? So there is very good chance that you wouldn't be able to escape the whole onslaught of technology and implications of technology, emerging technology on law, right? So all of you have heard of metaverse. Can somebody tell me what is metaverse?
Yes, ma'am. A combination of different universes.
Yes, in a way. Anybody else wants to elaborate it a bit more?
Ma'am, a digital simulation in which people from different places would not be the correct word, but they come together in that digital simulated world. And
I think both of you gave a sense, kind of sense of what metaverse is. It is like instead of you having a party at your home, you have a digital party, right? A lot of people come together, meet in a digital space using AR and VR and things like that, right? So imagine you're a property lawyer 20 years down the line, but you can be fighting for property rights or say impersonation in the metaverse, right? There are so many such examples. For example, in February, as recent as February, a lady had alleged that she was sexually abused in the metaverse because like 4 men tried to sexually abuse her in the metaverse, right? So these are real incidents. And as lawyers of the future, you would be practicing, say, 35, 40 years down the line, graduating. There is no way you can, escape the wrath of technology. We are talking about cyber crimes. Earlier, we were talking about, Somalian pirates trying to hijack the ship. Now, if you're an entrepreneur or a person running a company, your worst nightmare is somebody sitting in Hungary or any other part of the world, just, seizing your systems with using a ransomware, and they would demand Bitcoin. You do almost nothing about it, right? You could also you would have all heard about 3D printing, right? What about 3D printing? If I were to oversimplify almost, it is like regular prints, but proper structures. You could probably be able to build a house using 3D printing, right? So what happens if that house collapses? Who is responsible? Is the person who puts the print into action? Is the person who designs the house? So though we have laws for all these physical aspects of the day, it can get murkier. It can get confusing to apply it in a virtual space, right? We have, of course, spoken about violation of privacy by facial technology. So essentially, the case I'm trying to make is, irrespective of whether you are a fan of AI, whether you believe in AI or a metaverse making an impact, if you're a lawyer who is passionate about defending rights, passionate about practicing, passionate about knowing law, you can almost not escape understanding these emerging technologies, right? Going forward, so we have to first make clear as to what is not AI, right? What is that AI that we're talking about and what is not AI, right? For example, we all have this glorified image of, we have seen Terminator, we have seen movies like that, somebody trying to conquer human beings, trying to kill human beings. As of now, we are not there, but we are somewhere. What is that? Right? There are two types of artificial intelligence when you're broadly speaking. One is artificial narrow intelligence and another is artificial general intelligence. When I talk about artificial narrow intelligence, it is where AI is able to emulate certain human functions, right? It might be a chat box, it might be autonomous vehicles. There are certain aspects which AI is able to emulate depending on what input you give them. Right? So that is artificial narrow intelligence. And we are slowly moving towards artificial general intelligence, which will be able to do much more than what it is able to do now. But we have not reached there as of now. Right? So we need to understand that we are talking about artificial narrow intelligence as of now. Now, though it may not be able to kill humans as such as of now, it has not reached the kind of exaggeration we are talking about. The influence of AI is subtle but very strong. We have facial recognition. I'll use facial recognition as a case study to explain how AI can have an impact on real rights and what we need to do about it. Sir has already explained about recruiting algorithms, autonomous car, Professor 𝐿𝐶𝐚𝐫 ma'am has already spoken about. Then there are smart homes. All of us have heard of all these applications of AI. These are subtle when you compare to the killer robots. But this can have very, very strong influence on our legal rights. And as lawyers, we are, of course, very concerned about the implications on our rights. So we'll take the case of Robert Julian Williams. This is a very real case. This is a person who is wrongly accused of an algorithm. I'll give you how it played out. So he lives in a city in the US. Just a few days before birthday, he gets a call saying that you are wanted by police. Right? He thought it is a prank call. He completely ignored the call. And he asked, in fact, he had asked during the prank call, why are you calling me? He said, there is something we can't tell you, but you have to come to the detective agency or the police station as parallel of it in US and report. He really thought it's a prank call. He completely ignored it. Right? A few days down the line, he was driving. He was obstructed by a police vehicle. He was taken to police custody and he was interrogated. They were inquiring about a shoplifting incident where a robbery had happened and a huge stock of items were stolen from a shop a few years ago. They were not able to find the thief, but they were inquiring about it. They named the shop and they asked him, have you visited there? He said, yes, several years ago. Right? The interrogation continued. And why he was interrogated was because his face had matched the face of the thief who was caught in the act with the camera that they had. And unfortunately, both his image and the image of the thief in the CCTV camera, as you can call it, was not very clear. And how they had caught him and not anybody else? Because a lot of states in the US and several other countries use softwares of several companies, like CleanView is one of them, Clearview is one of them. What they do is, for example, Clearview has a repository of 200 crore people, right? The entire world population is 800 crores, 7.9 billion people in the world. They have a whole repository of 200 crore people, which they have scrapped from various places in the web. It could be Facebook, Instagram, wherever pictures of ILU might be available. They've scrapped it. They're made into a repository, and they're selling this repository or licensing this repository to various law enforcement agencies. And what these law enforcement agencies do is, whenever they have CCTV images of theft, they run these images, they run this software and see if there is a match. But unfortunately, what happens a lot of times, like this one, is that the images are not very clear. So they tend to mistake them. And there is a huge element of bias also in these cases, because their repositories are not clear, the pictures are very granular and things like that. So he spent, at the end of it, he spent around 30 hours in the prison. He had to be released on a $1,000 bond, and he's still considered not scot-free. He's still under suspicion, though they feel that the image of this person and that of the thief isn't matching. The man has no history of any criminal record, but he is still under suspicion, right? So there are several such examples of being, denied of medical insurance because they have apparently bought medicine for some reason, which is prohibited medicine and things like that. So 𝐶𝐶 ma'am was just speaking about how, imagine you're walking on a street and you feel you're continuously followed, right? It makes you very uncomfortable. This is the kind of situation internet and internet, in fact, these algorithms has brought us in, that you are always under surveillance. And if it's somebody following you, at least in the four walls of your house, you can at least consider yourself safe. But that doesn't happen with the internet these days. Every activity of yours is monitored. It gets into different algorithms. It is profiled, and the internet might know more about you than your own spouse or partner or family, right? So this is the extent to which algorithms are influencing us. And this is the implication of facial recognition algorithm. And this is why there is so much of hue and cry, especially in the Western world, about facial recognition and use of facial recognition, because it has given results that can be as damaging as this one. And you can imagine this in an Indian context, right? If you are a suspect under criminal law, until you are really clean, until you're acquitted, which can take several years of time, you will have implications on your employment, you will have implications on your passport and things like that. But this is a real case. It is reported in the New York Times. I might be able to share a link with you, and this has really happened. So, but there are several challenges when it comes to regulating AI. One is changing technology. You would have seen so many laws which say, this law will be reviewed after 10 years. It's written in so many of our laws. But if you see, technology changes every day, right? So it is very difficult to regulate a law that, create a law and adapt it to a technology that changes every day. Second challenge is, I'm kind of simplifying these challenges, but broadly speaking, these are the challenges. Second one is the same size fit all. See, we have smart fridges, we have smart homes, then we have facial recognition, then we have killer robots, or say autonomous drones. We cannot have the same set of laws for all of these, or say autonomous vehicles and smart homes. The risks are different, the levels of risks are different, right? So it is very difficult to have the same size fit all. You can't bring in one law of AI, though people are trying, countries are trying, that can fit into all these tiny different uses of AI, right? That is second. Third is stifling innovation. I'll give you examples of how it has threatened to stifle innovation. Once you bring in a lot of laws and compliances, AI is not just used by big MNCs, right? Every startup uses it. Small and medium-sized enterprises uses it. They are developing things. So it is threatening to stifle innovation that way. And fourth, it comes up with its own sets of trade-offs, which I'll explain. So for example, I was talking about stifling innovation, right? Now, this is one of the first laws on AI, because US has, as Sir had already explained, about bias in hiring, right? So there is a law which has come in, which is about to come into force in US, New York City, where employers or employment agencies are prohibited from using automated employment decision tools, which substantially assist them in assessing job candidate, unless the tool underwent a bias audit within a year before its use. So employers who intend to use AI tools in their hiring process after Jan 1st, 2023 must submit those tools to a bias audit and make the results available for public inspection in 2022. So what are the requirements? Notice to all residents. This is a specific state law. So it is applicable to residents of the New York State. So you have to give notice to all residents. And this notice has to be a 10 days advance notice. And a person has an option to opt out of this procedure. Now, if you really think about how it works, if you see recruitments of today, it is not state specific, right? In India, you don't have, general recruitments are not state specific, right? If you talk about how a recruitment happening, you can get job through Naukri, through LinkedIn. They would have no idea which resident of which state is applying, and they have no control over it. So now you can imagine how much of a compliance cost and compliance burden this can create, right? But this is how countries are trying to, kind of mitigate the implications of AI, right? This is one example of how it can stifle innovation, right? I'll give you another example, talking about trade-offs. We talk about AI as a black box, where, we don't know how the algorithm is working. There is lack of transparency and things like that, right? For example, Alibaba's Ant Group, it runs a bank and it uses an AI to approve small business loans in under 3 minutes without any human intervention. What it does is the software uses more than 3,000 data inputs, right from Alibaba also runs a famous e-commerce company as well. So right from your buying behavior and buying ability under that website to more than 3,000 data inputs are taken, and finally an output is given, right? So this software, now if you were to tell there has to be an audit and it has to be transparent, it is very difficult for a company to explain how this 3,000 data inputs are working for a particular result, right? So that's why it's considered regulating AI is having its own challenges, but I can give you examples of how countries are trying to manage it. Right? Firstly, we started with principles. There is UNESCO, as Sir mentioned. There are several OECD principles. There are universal AI guidelines. So, as a precursor to law, we have several policies in which have global implications. Several countries have approved, ratified these policies. This is UNESCO's principles on ethical use of AI. This happened, I think, almost end of last year. It has come up with certain broad principles for dealing with ethical use of AI. One is banning social scoring and mass surveillance, right? It says it has to be banned. Monitoring and evaluation. AI has to be monitored and evaluated in some form, right? And use of AI should be in such a way that environment is protected and responsibility and accountability should be there, and data has to be protected, and personal data has to be protected. So these are the broad principles that UNESCO has. So how US has approached AI regulation? Again, this runs into a lot of details, but I'm trying to give you a broad idea. So what US has done is, wherever AI has certain implications, different agencies of US is coming with kind of sectoral laws. It doesn't have one law on dealing with AI. For example, Food and Drug Administration Department, it has brought several regulations where software devices are used, software medical devices are used. There are certain set of AI regulations that they apply. For example, Department of Transportation has a certain policy for autonomous vehicles, etc. So this is how US has approached it. For example, California's law prohibits the creation of basically deepfake videos within 60 days. Prohibition of publication of these videos within 60 days of an election. Because we have seen, you might have seen real examples of how deepfake videos. For example, a candidate is speaking in a certain language, it is shown to be in a different language, or a candidate is speaking, quite normally, it is changed into a derogatory speech, right? Within 60 days of an election, a candidate may not have the time to explain or prove that it is wrong, but it can have huge implications, right? So certain aspects of AI, deepfake is through AI. So certain aspects of AI is being regulated, right? But US generally believes in a light touch approach. It doesn't want to prohibit, it doesn't want to come in the way of innovation. Europe, on the other hand, has a fairly different approach. Europe has come with, EU Artificial Intelligence Act. It is a act in the draft stage. It is yet to come into effect. However, we have a draft, regulation. So the approach with AI is quite different. It has a risk-based approach. So it has one common regulation for AI. However, it describes the risk level differently. For example, if there is biometric facial recognition, the risk is considered high. Then there is limited risk. Then there is minimal risk. Then there is unacceptable risk. And each of these are divided and categorized differently, and they're treated differently under the law. It is a matter of a longer discussion. So I would just briefly tell you that this is how EU is approaching AI regulation. Coming to developments in India, when I have to say in India, what we have is different policies brought out by the NITI Aayog. Then, of course, there are some policies on data accessibility and things like that which can have implications on AI. But this is what broadly India has NITI Aayog principles on responsible use of AI, though we do not have specific legislations. However, there are some developments expected with these two aspects. One is under Section 19 of the Personal Data Protection Bill, or as of now it's called the Data Protection Bill. So there is a right to algorithmic transparency, which means that if any automated means are used in collecting data, there is a requirement to disclose the details of it to any person who seeks it, or to any data subject, right? So that is what the law says. That is very broadly what is right of algorithmic transparency. Second, as you have heard in news, that use of facial recognition by police is being challenged in the Telangana High Court. It would be an interesting aspect to see what decision will come out. So that is for us to wait and see what happens there. It can be a very important decision, because almost all the police agencies that we're talking about are using facial recognition in some or the other form, though it can be highly amenable to challenge, because we do not have a law that protects personal data of citizens. And facial data is definitely a personal data, and which is something very private and personal to a person. So this can have very huge implications on how AI will be regulated in India, or at least facial recognition is one of the uses of AI. So that is talking about the developments in India. So this is what AI report says. Very broadly, I'll deal with it. I'm not sure if I have time, but anyways, this is the last slide. So AI, from what I understand from the NITI Aayog's approach, India is looking at sector-specific regulatory framework. When I say sector-specific, transport department might be looking at AI differently. Healthcare department might look at it differently. There will not be one single law covering all these AI uses. There will be different laws which different regulators will come up for different sectors. Second is, India strongly believes in human in the loop. You can have as much AI as you want, but human beings has to be in the loop. For example, the final decision has to be taken under the supervision of a human being. So that is one. Third is, all these, as Sir has quite rightly pointed out, data is an important input. Data is crucial input for any AI, right? So it is important that good, proper quality data gets into this AI. So it is very important that companies have access to quality data, right? So that is third aspect. And it also talks about having an ethics company in the company, which will review the AI and see if whether the AI is ethical or not. So these are the broad highlights of the responsible AI report of NITI Aayog. So this is how India stands. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take it. And this is my contact details in case you want to ask me any question in the future. Thank you.
So thank you so much, ma'am, for such an enlightening lecture. and for telling us about various challenges we have faced through AI, and also giving us insight about India and USA approach towards AI. Ma'am have also highlighted the data protection bill with reference to the artificial intelligence. Thank you so much, ma'am, for giving a lot of interesting example. So with this, we have come to the Q&A session, question and answer session. And now I would like to call upon my dear student Charvi to handle this Q&A session. So you can type your question in the chat box.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, respected speakers, for such an informative session. We would now take the questions participants have put in the chat box. I would name call the participants who have put their questions in the chat box. I request you to unmute yourself when I call for your name. So first question would be from Manas Dikshit. You're requested to unmute yourself if you're there in the meet.
Good evening to the respected speakers. My question is to Anand sir, that as you have talked that there are cases of verbal abuses to the bots and in the metaverse of sexual offences. Based on the current penal laws that are available in India, how can we attract the liability in such cases?
Okay, see, if you are referring to the abusive language that you use towards a bot or a voice assistant, someone has also pointed out in chat box that there is no prescribed punishment for it. No. What came and from what perspective I was trying to bring in here was that the response of the voice assistant, female, if it's a female voice, and especially for people who associate the bots with some gender, the response of that voice assistant, if is positive even towards abusive comments, it will reinforce the stereotype that you can get away and you can be patriarchal in a way, and you can abuse the woman and you can get away just like that. So it comes from there. Do we have a law for penalizing people, affixing liability for abusing your digital devices? No, we do not. Right? We keep on cursing our mobile phones. We don't get liable for that. So, but it should not reinforce our stereotypes. This is what we are supposed to take care of.
Thank you so much, sir. Well, the next question would be from Nandini Sharma. Nandini Sharma, kindly unmute yourself.
Good evening, speakers, and thank you for the enriching session. Sir and ma'am, I have a question. I am not sure to exactly whom of you I'm addressing the question. Sir, if we talk about crimes that take place online or through AI, can we hold the liability or the duty to the state to take the preventive measures for the public? Like if it is to, can we expect the state to subsidize the say antivirus or preventive softwares for us?
See, we can expect many things from state. But the problem with technology is that, and it is so much available, that okay, you think of state is supposed to take some preventive measures, etc. Has not the state taken up preventive measures to stop online child pornography? Right? Government has been banning and have been blocking access to websites and content which has child pornography. But unfortunately, we are one of the largest consumers of child pornography in the world. How could that happen? And in the light of that, and I see so many questions, why can't we have police system, machinery, etc. I want to draw your discussion back to, and there was this question, how to regulate cyberspace, how to regulate it. So there were various models and theories and schools, etc. The prominent amongst them is Lawrence Lessig's Modalities of Regulation. And he said, if you have to regulate cyberspace, if you have to regulate digital space, you cannot focus on one factor. You have to focus on 4 factors. One is law, another is norm, third is market, and fourth is architecture. Okay, now you read more about it. Later on came up a school of network communitarianism, which said that these four factors are impacting upon a particular dot, and these dots are again impacting and affecting each other, and that is how entire cyberspace is getting regulated. So what I want to say is that you cannot just pin upon government or state to take care of things. You will have to have network architecture in place. You'll have to have such kind of market which is supporting good practices, cyber hygienic practices, cyber security practices, and you need to inculcate norms in people. It is only when these four factors will become strong, it will impact upon that pathetic dot which Lawrence Lessig speaks of, and the network communitarianism, wherein there are grid of these dots which are impacting against each other, and holistically we will be able to regulate the cyberspace. If that does not happen, we won't be able to. Let's say if some picture goes viral, right? How can we stop that? Let's say a girl's picture has been taken in a compromising situation and it goes viral. How will you stop it? You know, it spreads like anything. Your technology to a certain extent will be of some help. Your police would be of some help. But at the end of the day, it would be the market, it would be the norms of the people, the architecture which would have to jump in, have to ensure that it further does not circulate. Okay, so all those questions which are lined on these things, this is a common answer for all of them. I hope and you read more about network communitarianism, read about the movement of cyber libertarianism, read about Joel Riedelberg, and read about Lawrence Lessig model of modalities of regulation. You will get answer to how cyberspace can be regulated. Okay, Nandini?
Sir, can you please again tell the name
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, so you read please about cyber libertarianism, which was the first school of thought which said that don't regulate cyberspace. Your archaic laws, hierarchical laws are of no use. Let netizens, virtual avatars decide they are the sovereign, cyber sovereign, etc. So cyber libertarianism. Then came cyber paternalism. Third came Lawrence Lessig's modalities of regulation. Fourth came network communitarianism. You read all four of these and you will understand how exactly cyberspace gets regulated.
What was the fourth one, sir?
Fourth is network communitarianism. You want to have privacy. How will you have privacy? People don't want to respect each other's privacy. So you have to respect privacy at the design level itself. All your computers, laptops are enabled with cameras, right? Besides the camera, there is a small light that is flashing. What is it? This is privacy at design, right? The moment light gets flashed, you know that, oh, the video is working. That means my picture is being captured. I have to be careful now. This is the technology has tried to, or the people who are working on technology have tried to protect privacy of people. There was no law that said that, oh, besides the camera, you should have a light that keeps on flashing. But network, people, design, right? Telecom operators, if they say, henceforth we'll ensure no pornography, especially child pornography, is published on or through my services towards my users. 90% of internet, 80 to 90% of internet is handled by telecom service providers. Well, they can, if they can take it down, then we would be able to regulate it. Law again has, you may not call upon the law and ask the law enforcement agencies to take the action. So it's all that. You read all these four and you'll get a very holistic understanding how exactly a digital space gets regulated. And so devices also. Ashish, hope I have addressed your query.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Ma'am, do we have time to take more questions?
Maybe we can take 2-3 questions. Suman ma'am? Okay, just take a two more question, and
okay.
other question we can send to the speaker.
Ji. And there's a question from Mohit Nemiwal. Mohit, you are requested to unmute yourself.
Good morning, good evening, everyone. Hello, sir. It is regarding peculiarly about how could we access AI? Because, sir, there is lot of problem. I have mentioned in another question also just right now. Because sir, AI is totally controlled by some multinational giants for their personal use, and no law enforcement agency have any control over them. Is there any solution to this?
Yeah, this is a very vast question, and I would also invite the other speaker to respond to this, because this is basically her domain. Yeah, Pritika ma'am, I would like to respond to that.
Yeah. So, firstly, I don't fully agree with your question, though I don't 100% disagree with you as well, right? We kind of sometimes oversimplify AI to say it's controlled by multinational giants, though I don't fully deny. I'll come to that part later. But AI is something which is used every day with a lot of companies. So, firstly, there is no domination of AI by a few multinationals. However, we have a lot of discussion about personal data being in the hands of a few companies like, say, Facebook, Amazon, Google, Microsoft. They have a huge influence over for example, take the example of Google, right? When you do a search, they know a lot about your buying behavior. When they know your buying behavior, they're able to tie up with advertisers and try to push products. For example, if you do a research for if you want to buy do research for buying a bike, you will start seeing advertisements of different sellers of bikes, right? So that is how, of course, a lot of data is being held by these companies. That is when it comes to personal data. I wouldn't say AI as such is kind of monetized by companies, only major companies, though they have a huge hold on, in fact, how research is being done on AI, right? On principles of AI and things like that. They have some hold, but not totally, because AI is something any engineer sitting can use AI tool, can develop AI tool. As of now, it has no regulation. You don't have to take anybody's permission to develop an AI tool, right? So I wouldn't agree with you that multinationals have control. But of course, there is a lot of control of your personal data in the hands of few MNCs, few huge companies. And that is the whole exercise of regulating AI and personal data, right? For example, Facebook threatened to pull out of Europe, right? And Facebook's value, because after this whole, controversy on personal data being misused by Facebook, the valuation of companies have fell by half, right? Valuation has come by half. So I wouldn't say, of course, there needs to be more push towards having laws on AI, enforcing laws on personal data. But at the same time, I wouldn't be cynical to say that there's nothing happening. I think a decade down the line, we'll be in a much better position to see, how this unfolds, right? There will be better regulation, I believe, on AI and use of personal data, because we're moving in that direction.
If I may add to what ma'am has said. See, if you are trying to make them liable, okay, and we know ma'am has already told that data protection bill is still in its bill stage. There are two sections that you can rely on. The first is section 43 capital A of Information Technology Act, and second is the data collected by your body corporate, and second is section 72A. If you are thinking that WhatsApp, Facebook, etc. have collected your data through this thing and the AI is capable of doing things, section 72A says that if under lawful contract you have, if some other party has secured access over your personal information and that party has caused some wrongful loss or wrongful claim and has disclosed it without your consent to someone else, because that is what most of the times our concern is in the breach of lawful contract, then they prescribe for punishment. This is one thing. And second thing, presently we have privacy rules of 2011. Okay, so they are called as something called as information technology reasonable security practices and procedures and sensitive personal data or information rules 2011. They have purpose limitation ka feature. They have few data law ka features. They define disclosure policy. They define privacy policy. They expect how privacy has to be there. They define sensitive and personal data or information. How data has to be collected and how it is to be disclosed, what are the rights of a person over data, how the information can be transferred, and most importantly, what are the reasonable security practices and procedures that needs to be applied to keep data safe. So there are internationally, there is something called as ISO 27001 practice, okay, information security management practice is there. That is the standard which they expect from all the corporates, body corporates, which are dealing with personal and sensitive data. Okay, so if you want to bring them under law and if you want to act against them, you can. So it is not that we do not have anything. And now we have Puttaswamy judgment also. So there is a lot of consensus and conscience is also there in the judiciary and in the minds of people. People are getting educated about privacy. So we, to that extent, we have something to be taken care of. And we of course have section 43A if you need compensation. Section 43 if you need compensation. So there also copying data. You'll have to figure out ways in which you can bring your case under those 43 A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H.
So thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
So, well, sir, we'll take a last question. Since we are short of time, we'll take a last question. This question, ma'am, is directed to you. This is a question by Parth Jain. He has put it in the chat box. He's asked me to ask this one to you. Well, he asked that technology is changing on a very fast pace, and you as well mentioned about the challenges of metaverse. So what are the career prospects to become a technology lawyer? So can it be a domain to pursue, or is it too volatile to take up right now?
So they say the only constant thing is change, right? So a technology will keep changing, but as a technology lawyer, like any good lawyer, right? If you want to be a good constitutional lawyer, you need to know what is happening in the Supreme Court today, and you have to keep track of what is happening in the Supreme Court, High Courts, throughout, right? So you cannot say that, I've studied, I'm a gold medalist in a university and I've studied, I'm done with it. That's not how it works. The same applies for technology as well, right? The technology is going to change, and as technology is going to change, the laws are also going to change. And I'm sure all of us as human beings are very adaptable. That is one great reason why human species is still surviving, right? All of us will be able to adapt to the changing technologies and become flourishing lawyers. See, I started as a corporate lawyer. I had not studied technology law in my college, right? But there is this whole process of learning which I'm going through every day, right? I take a lot of time understanding the technology, then comes the legal aspects of it, right? If I want to defend somebody in metaverse or on metaverse, I need to first understand the technology and then understand or associate legal rights with it, right? So that is a process that is going to happen. So the question you have to ask yourself is whether it excites you, right? Whether AI, whether privacy, technology law is a very broad term, but are these aspects exciting you, right? If it excites you, I think it's a good place to start, right? And don't worry about the changes. You will flourish in any change that happens as long as you have interest in it and you want it, right? I hope I've answered your question.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Over to you, Anita, ma'am.
Thank you, Charvi, for handling this Q&A session. So with this, we have come to end to the session, and now I would like to take opportunity to call upon Dr. Suman Yadav, ma'am, to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Anita.
On behalf of Campus Law Center, I would like to express my gratitude to our esteemed guest speakers of the webinar, Dr. Anand N. Rawat sir and Ms. Pillinger ma'am, for their thought-provoking and interesting address. Thank you for enlightening us and making this webinar a great success. I also take the privilege to thank our professor in charge, Professor Dr. 𝐿𝐿𝐶𝐷𝐺𝐵 ma'am, for always encouraging and motivating us. You've been always a great support, ma'am. Thank you so much. I also take the liberty to thank the webinar team, my colleague, Dr. Anita Yadav, and students Charvi and Gauravdi for their constant support and helping me in making this event a very successful. Last but not the least, I'm proud privileged to thank each one of the students who joined us today here on Zoom and on YouTube. Without you all, it would have not been possible. So thank you so much. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, students. Very
Thank
happy
you,
to see
sir.
enthusiastic students. Just like
Thank you, sir.
our MLE. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks to the speakers.
Oh, thank you, ma'am. PIC ma'am. So I'm just ending the session, Suman ma'am.
Yes, we can stop the live.